So I always just kind of had that approach to like basically everything. When we came out with our second album, I wanted to do a music video, and I saw some videos online about doing green screen, and I was like, I can figure that out. And bought a bunch of green fabric from Walmart, and we made Chains on Fire, which ended up actually turning out way, way better than I thought it was going to turn out.
Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, talk all about their lives and music while sharing a craft beer. I hope you've had a killer weekend. I most certainly did. This Vox and Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal are Montreal's premier metal promoter, and I am very, very stoked to announce that Heavy Montreal presents Vox and Hops Brutal Montreal 2023 has just been announced. This year's event features performances by Clutch, Amigo the Devil, and Nate Bergman. This killer beer and metal event is happening on April 15th at M. Telus in Montreal. I am just so damn stoked. Tickets are now on sale, and you can check them out via the link in the description of this podcast. I'm beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I would love for you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that is just a master of all trades, someone that seems to be able to pull off just anything on their own, well, you should let them know that the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast exists. You could tell them that there are over 380 episodes where I hang out with some of the world's best metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing a craft beer. If you would encourage one of your master of all trades friends to become a brand new Vox and Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, today on the podcast, I'm very stoked to be with Ty Christian, also known as Fang Vonwrathenstein of Lords of the Trident. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox and Hops episode number 389.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm very stoked to be with Ty Christian, also known as Fang Vonwrathenstein of Lords of Trident. How are you doing? We are recording this at a Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. I love this. The first Thirsty Thursday virtual hang of 2023. My favorite Thursdays of every month. Ty, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Super happy to be here. I'm extremely stoked to finally be part of the Vox and Hops gang because, man, I love beer. And I love vocals, and I was just like, "This is perfect." I could talk about beer and vocals a long time. The only other thing I think I could talk about longer than that is my love of Japanese toilets. Probably.
Oh yes, hell yes. Oh yes. Have you? The people that don't know, Japanese toilets are very interesting. Well, we'll just start with that.
Oh yeah,
Let's
okay.
Get
Well,
straight into that.
let me jump right into it. If you're not using a Japanese toilet, I want you to just go demolish the toilet that you have right now. And get on Amazon and just go nuts because, the Japanese toilet technology is far and away above any other country out there. You sit down, you've got a warm seat, you've got privacy technology, you've got the airflow that automatically cleans the air. And you don't smell anything. You've got different pressure washes after you're done. And the top of the line toilets, you can even control via Bluetooth. So you don't even touch anything. My toilet at home, I've got a midline model, right? But it's connected to a Toto Tornado Flush toilet, which you can get 32 golf balls with 1 gallon of water, baby. But once that, when I sit down, you do your thing. You have the different types of nozzles and sprays that you can use to clean up afterwards. And then when everything's all done, boom, air dry. You got a butt blow dryer, baby. What more would you need in your life, really? Honestly, it's amazing.
I loved it when I did Japan. My last time out there was in 2019. The accuracy is what surprised me. It's so accurate. It gets it every time, no matter where you're seated. It's just very impressive.
They've spent years and years figuring that out, but it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Amazing. Massive shout out to Natalka from the Thirsty Thursday gang for introducing us. As we spoke before we started recording here, we were both on each other's radar, but it just never happened. So shout out to Natalka for being awesome as always and introducing me to amazing people. We love you, Nat. Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. Ty, what beer do you have on your side that you're going to be sharing with us virtually tonight?
Oh my God, there was so many decisions in this because I've got just a beer fridge full of choices. Many of them amazing, some of them questionable, but I decided I wanted to go a little bit more towards the Wisconsin side of things because we have such an amazing craft beer culture here in Wisconsin. So couple choices that I brought together, and I think I know which one I'm going to go with, but I just wanted to highlight some of my favorites here. Locally, there's a brewery called Untitled Art. It's actually a nomadic brewery. So the guy who makes the recipes and stuff is somewhere in Scandinavia, and then he basically sends it to a brewery that's about 10 minutes from my house, and they make these incredible beers. The cool thing about Untitled Art is they only make one beer once. So you get these beers in a 4-pack, and you have to buy them, otherwise they go away forever. They will never remake the beer, which it sucks sometimes. The one that have today is the chocolate cinnamon churro pastry stout, which I've had one. That one's pretty good. Secondarily, of course, a lot of people know New Glarus Brewing, a Wisconsin staple. That one is about 25 minutes from my house here in the town of New Glarus, known as Wisconsin's Little Switzerland. The Mocha Berry Bock that I have here from New Glarus is one of their Thumbprint series. So it's one of the ones that they only make once in a while. When Seven Kingdoms came through on tour in December of 2021, Sabrina from Seven Kingdoms bought a 4-pack of the Mocha Berry Bock and then kicked herself the entire rest of the tour because she loved it so very much. Yeah, and New Glarus does not ship or manufacture or do anything outside of Wisconsin. So you need to come to Wisconsin to get New Glarus. A lot of people like their Spotted Cow. It's a farmhouse ale. It's good. It's just like here in Madison, it's everywhere. It's like you've got Bud, Miller, and Spotted Cow. So people are freaking out about it, and then it's like, I don't know why. The beer I think I'm going to go with tonight, a very Wisconsin beer, Central Waters from Amherst, Wisconsin, just outside of Stevens Point, Wausau area, kind of the middle of the state. The reason I'm choosing this one, this is a Brewer's Reserve, so another one of those that's, one and done. But it is a Raspberry Kringle Stout. So the Kringle, for people who are not familiar with the Kringle, is a very specialized pastry that's famous from Racine, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours from where I'm from here in Madison. And it is sort of like a very, very large, very, very round kind of flat pastry filled with wonderful fillings and covered with some sort of glaze on the top. And this Raspberry Kringle Stout, not only is it a Wisconsin beer, but it throws some Wisconsin heritage in there. It's a stout aged in bourbon barrels with raspberry and natural flavors. 12% ABV, baby. So I think I'm going to go with that. Big. And I'm going to open it. Big. I'm going to open it with the Wisconsin Cheese and Burger Society opener to get extra Wisconsin points. So there you go. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers to you. I feel like you've mastered the word Wisconsin. You just smashed through it. It's very much amazing. Shout out to Casket Robbery. I know you're playing with them tomorrow, too.
Yeah. Super excited.
Vox and Hops alumni from Wisconsin. On my side, also, does that beer come with a little pack of insulin?
I feel like I need it, right?
Because it sounds like you might need it. This is one of my collabs that dropped for the 4-year anniversary of Vox and Hops. This is my collab with Little Cottage Brewing, which I'm wearing the shirt of. This is a very cool beer called Nightmare on Olive Street. The brewery is located in Atlanta, Georgia, or outside Atlanta on Olive Street. This is a big stout as well. This one is filled with brewer's molasses, brewer's licorice. It's conditioned on cinnamon, cascabel, and guajillo. Spicy peppers, people. 10.2%. Philip Ivanovic really destroyed the artwork on this with the totally legal representation of Freddy Krueger with because it's a parody, because he's got the licorice and cinnamon sticks on the claws instead. I'm going to crack this, and I would love to hear about your very first beer, Ty. Do you remember the first beer that you ever drank?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My my dad was one of those. He was a big believer, and I'm a big believer in this too. In that, if you have a kid and you want them to kind of stay on the straight and narrow in as far as like alcohol consumption is concerned, basically just give them the tell them you're allowed to drink at home. You give them the opportunity to drink and try out the beer that you're having with dinner. And what he always told me is he's like, listen, I want you, I know that alcohol consumption when you're in high school and whatnot can be a thing, and I want you to stay safe. I don't want you driving. I don't want you doing any of that. So if your friends want to have a party in which they want to consume alcohol, just come on over here and I'll be home and I can supervise, and you guys can have whatever beer or liquor or whatever you want. So that was a great parenting technique. The downside is that he had the worst taste in beer. Oh my God. Like, I don't know if you're familiar, and I hope you're not, but there's a beer called Mad Dog. And
oh, no.
It is terrible. And so, I was 12 maybe, and my dad, we were having dinner, and he says, hey, would you like a sip of the beer? Want to try this out? And I was like, okay, sure, yeah, whatever, I'll give it a shot. And so I drink it, and holy shit, it's terrible. It's horrendous, right? And so I'm like, how could you drink? You like that? And he's like, you'll understand when you're older. And what I understand when I'm older is that he has really bad taste in beer. So for a long time, I went to I went to college and I went to house parties and whatever. And the house parties didn't have any better beer. They had shitty whatever that was cheap. And so for many, many years, before I turned 21, I would tell my friends, like, look, I'm just not into beer. I like rum, I like bourbon, I like this and this and this. I'm not a beer guy. And one of my best friends from my hometown had himself a very close friend who was older and was a bartender. And he said to me, it's not that you don't like beer, you just haven't found the right beer yet. And so what we ended up doing, so I'm originally from Superior, Wisconsin, which is just hours away from the Canadian border, basically. So what we would do is we would just drive up to Canada, and we planned out basically a beer-education weekend where he got a hotel room, drove up to Canada, and just we just drove around, took taxis around, and he put 7, 8, 10 different beers in front of me at all of these different little microbrews and different bars until I found one that I liked, and then eventually I sort of expanded from there. And of course, the ones that I liked were the big dark stouts. I was more of like a brown and down kind of a guy until I expanded my palate a bit. So
amazing! That's so exciting. And cheers to that friend of yours for taking the time to beer educate you, to educate you.
I got a beer education.
There you go. I like that thing. Because it's true. A lot of people try stuff for the first time and they just write it off forever, like metal.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. It's too much. It's too extreme.
I've also tried to expand my dad's sort of beer repertoire, and he's gotten better. He's gotten better. I'll just say, he's not he's not quite where we are, us enlightened folks. But he's gotten better.
We just have to try them all. That's the problem. This poured out gorgeous head retention's awesome. The licorice and cinnamon strong on the nose. Mouthfeel is incredible. It's so thick and creamy. That once again, the licorice, the cinnamon popping. It's sweet but not too sweet because the spice comes in and kicks in at the end, but it's not too spicy. Really good. Little Cottage Brewing. Will, massive shout out to you, bud. I know you're listening to this. Really appreciate you making this for the 4th anniversary of Vox&Hops. Classic question. I'd like to hear about the soundtrack of your youth when you were growing up in your parents' or guardians' house. What music was playing when you were not in control of the radio? What music did your parents or guardians listen to? I hope it was better than his beer taste.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. I grew up with a lot of different, very weird, very varied LPs and cassettes. I remember Michael Jackson's Thriller, listening to that a lot. My dad was a big Bob Seger fan, and I love Bob Seger's voice. Absolutely incredible. And I listened to I listened to a lot of Gloria Estefan from my mom. And,
oh shit! My dad loved her. You know that? It's so funny.
I thought she was so cool. And then I would, I'd have my friends over, or we'd, my baseball team would be, oh, we're going out to the cabin. I'm like, guys, you got to check this out. This is the real hot shit. And I'd play like, come on, shake your body, baby, do the conga. And they were all looking at me like, what is he about? So yeah, it was a lot of like classic rock staples and sort of 80s, late 80s, early 90s pop was kind of the general direction of my parents. Yeah.
I remember my dad going to see Gloria Estefan, and apparently there was a lot of underwear being thrown on stage. This is like a vivid memory I have, and I don't know if it was just him joking and teasing, but it's a vivid memory of him saying that and talking about underwear being... Maybe he might have just been joking with his friends, him throwing his underwear. I'll have to ask him. I'm going to see him in the next few days. How about your first live music experience? Do you remember the first show that you went to go see?
Yeah, very much. I went to go see Real Big Fish with my friend who was a huge Real Big Fish fan, and that was the first concert I ever went to where like parents were not involved, and it was a very small club in Duluth, Minnesota. And it was crammed, and I was like, I was 13, maybe 13, and so I was like this tall, and there was a billion people in front of me. I think I saw a trombone like once, like maybe, but I remember really enjoying it. It was way louder than I thought. This was obviously before I knew everything about hearing protection and all that sort of stuff. Way louder than I thought it was going to be. Came home with some ringing ears. And I remember my friend freaking out, for a lot of the songs and like skanking, and I didn't know what the fuck to do. So I was just like, that, I'm going to do that.
I was going to ask if you skanked in your first pit. Yeah.
Oh, I did my best. I just, followed what my friend was doing. Like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. All right, cool.
That's a beautiful thing about a mosh pit is it's the educational processes that go on there is by looking around and seeing what other people are doing, and the culture of mosh pits is something that interests me very much.
Yeah.
How about your first time on stage?
First time on stage, I don't know if this 100% counts, but it's when I lost my stage fright forever. I'll say like I don't know if we're counting like school pageants or whatever.
Oh, I'd love to go back that far. Yeah, that's what I like. I like to hear about the stage fright and the shittiness, because I went through that as well.
Well, I never really had too much... I don't remember too much about like the school pageants, other than like, I don't know, maybe there was like a Christmas nativity something or other at some point. I went to a Catholic school all the way up through 8th grade, if you believe it. And with a last name like Christian. But I do very much remember my first actual like solo on-stage performance, because I when I was 8 I started taking piano lessons. When I was 10 I started taking vocal lessons, mostly because I wouldn't stop fucking singing during my piano lessons, and my teacher was like, all right, Jesus Christ, we're just fine here.
Fine, you win.
Yeah. But I remember I was 9 years old, and it was or maybe I was 10. It was 9 or 10, and I was it was my first piano competition. We went up to a university that had a large auditorium, and I think this was up somewhere in Minnesota. And I was 10, and I had this like Tchaikovsky piece or something, and I walk into this empty auditorium, completely empty and dark, right? And there's a stage in front of me with the piano, and the only people in the auditorium are 3 tiny old German women, like maybe 5 feet, maybe, right? And they look identical. They have got like the big, the poofy hair, and they've got a clipboard, and they're like basically like taking notes the entire time, and they just stare daggers into me. That was the most afraid I've ever been in my life. That was the most stage fright I've ever had in my entire life. I walked up to the piano.
That was the competition. There was no crowd. It was just 3 people evaluating you. Oh, that's so scary. So there's no vibe.
No, it was literally just like they were grading you on points, right? So I remember walking up to the piano, my hands are shaking, and I'm like, and I end up playing it like okay. I remember I got 3rd place, but I left that auditorium. I remember it being like the most stressful and scary experience on stage of my life. And I left that auditorium, and that actually cured my stage fright forever. I have zero stage fright now, no matter the situation,
because it can't get as bad as that.
Exactly. Nothing is worse than that. Absolutely nothing is worse than that.
You don't have like flashback nightmares about these three women.
I mean, I kind of laugh about it now because it was kind of advantageous, you know. Like when I was in high school, I was in the theater group, and everybody else had those, you know, pangs of anxiety, and, you know, I missed a line, or I lost my place, or whatever, and I was just like, there's no German women in the audience. Come on, like, what am I gonna do? You know, who cares?
That is something very important. The dark spiral, the black void of, oh shit, I fucked up, and then having to be able to do what you just said and just move on.
I was so like fearless on stage during high school that there was a play where someone had to drop their pants on stage, and they cast me specifically for that role because they knew I wouldn't care. And then it worked out so well. We actually won like a statewide award for that like play. It worked out so well that they just kept finding plays where people dropped their pants. And then I was like the drop the pants guy in high school.
You're typecast.
Yeah. I mean, again, I will say it got me a decent number of dates, so I'm okay with it. You know, like, hey.
Amazing. Your voice, you mentioned piano class, singing. Was piano class a choice, or was it something that you were put into?
It was something that, I mean, I was asked if I wanted to do it, and I said yes because I was 8 and I didn't know any better. But I grew up in a very musical family on my mom's side. My dad's side can't carry a tune at all, but my mom actually has 2 gold records from her time in the Duluth Accordionaires, which is a 60-person all accordion orchestra. They toured Europe. They had 4 or 5 albums, and you know, like imagine an entire orchestra. And it's just all accordions. It's all accordions. And at the time, she was very embarrassed by that because this was like, you know, late 80s, early 90s, and accordions were not cool. So she ended up...
Well, I don't know. Weird Al was sort of cool with an accordion at that time, but it was still like parody, right? It's not serious, but it's not like revered.
Yeah. I mean, I loved Weird Al, but, you know, she was into like extreme sports. And at the time, it wasn't really cool to be like, you know, speed skating and also like, yeah, I'd fucking shred the accordion. I mean, nowadays that'd be wild.
Nowadays it'd be killer, yeah.
So she never really talked about that, but I ended up taking piano and voice lessons with one of her best friends from the Accordionaires who lived, you know, 5 miles from us, and my grandparents, her mom and dad were in a polka band, and that's kind of how they met. And I would go over to their house and I'd see their posters on their wall down in the basement of the rec room, and I'd see pictures of them playing to like packed, you know, houses and stuff like that. And I mean, it just seemed really cool to me. My grandpa was a huge on, you know, kind of my approach to life and just general stuff. And he would always come over and just kind of, you know, he'd be able to sit down at the piano and play a song and sing, and everybody would just clap along, and it was super fun. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want, that, you know. So that was kind of like a big influence on me.
That's super, super sick. So then you start singing, and then you get into musical theater in high school. Were they happy, not only about the pant dropping, about the fact that you could actually sing? Because when I was in high school, they were like, fuck, this kid can sing. Let's give him some roles. Let's build some role. He can mediocrely act, but he can sing, so we'll give him some of the bigger roles, let's say.
Yeah, that was definitely a boon for me. It was being able to sing and being able to, you know, basically be mildly fearless on stage. Around that time too, I started my first band in high school, and I started playing the keyboard, if you believe it. Like, I was the main singer, but I also played the keyboard. And we did like alternative rock and we did like, you know, like Pearl Jam and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and, you know, it was the style of the time, you see, and
it was very popular, yeah.
You know, and it was and Green Day. It was like easy stuff, you know, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And then we were a 5-piece, and one of the guitarists quit, and this was like maybe 9 months into the band, and so I decided that there was more opportunity as a guitarist than a keyboardist in the style we were playing. So I bought a cheap guitar, and I basically taught myself how to play guitar using like online, the early dial-up internet online tabs that I could get my hands on, and just kind of learned organically. And yeah, I started playing there, and we had the band going for pretty much all 4 years of high school, and we were kind of I don't know if we were like popular, but like we were like the only band, maybe. Like there was another band, but like they were a lot more angry at their dad, which ended up being a lot more popular than us, I suppose. But as it got later on into the time, but they were a lot more like hard rock radio, and we were kind of more softer Pearl Jam kind of side of things. So
I am very happy that I found my band in high school, and I started, and we hung out for the first time in 20 years back in August, and we jammed together these original songs, and it was really, really very cool. It's nice to be able to do stuff like that. Something, as I was preparing for this, you're basically an expert in DIY. So I'd like to dig deep into that. That's like the main thematic of what this chat's going to focus on. Cryptopsy was independent since 2012. We released one album, 2 EPs, and now we have signed subsequently back to a major label. Talk to me about doing everything yourselves, a lot of it doing it like in-house, from video production to photography to basically everything. What was the main reason for Lords of the Trident being a do-it-yourself band?
I am cheap. That's the main reason. Like, I don't have early on in the band, I didn't have a lot of money, and and essentially I don't know. There was a moment. There was a moment in my life where my dad has been a big DIY guy, but his focus was on like cars. So he would buy a car from a junkyard. I remember he brought in a minivan that had been in a front end and back end crash with 2 semis, and it was a cube. It was literally a cube, right? There was no front, there was no back. It was just a square. And I remember him slowly like building it out and making it a functional minivan, and it worked, and we drove it for I don't know, like 10 years. So he was big on like the mechanical side of DIY, and there was a couple moments in my life where I would chat with somebody who I had, like a plumber would come over and would be fixing something that blew up in the house or whatever, and there was a couple moments where I was watching, I'd always ask if I could watch what they were doing, and I'd ask them questions, and it just, a lot of it came off as like, I could do this. Like, I could figure this. This doesn't seem like some like arcane knowledge. It doesn't seem like something you need to like go to school for 25 years and get a PhD or whatever to figure this out. So I always just kind of had that approach to like basically everything. We when we came out with our second album, I wanted to do a music video, and I saw some videos online about doing green screen, and I was like, I can figure that out, and bought a bunch of green fabric from Walmart, and we made Chains on Fire, which ended up actually turning out way better than I thought it was going to turn out. So and then it just kind of went from there. I kind of always figured that it was better for me to try it myself and fail at it, and then I'd learn something, and then if I needed to, I could pay for it. Like there's no harm in me trying to make a music video, and if it sucks, I'm just not going to release it, and then I'll just pay somebody to do it. Or there's no harm in me trying to mix our album, and if it sucks, I'll just pay somebody to do it, and I just won't release the shitty mix that I made. But I'll definitely learn something in the process. And I think also, if you're unafraid to DIY anything, not just music stuff, but you gain a better appreciation for the different skill sets that everyone has, and I think you're able to speak more languages, so to speak. If somebody is super into like home recording, or if somebody is super into video, or if they're super into plumbing, you have something to talk with them about, and you can kind of get on their level and make a more human connection with them. So that's kind of been the focus of the DIY ethos of Lords of the Trident, and it's just paid off really well. You know, I'm definitely a jack of all trades, master of none kind of a thing, but it's nice because if there's something that we want to do as a band, it's not like, let's save up the money to do this. It's like, I think I can figure this out, and then if it sucks, we'll save up the money to do it. You know, so.
If a young band is listening, what would be the tools that you wish you knew back in the day when you started all this, doing it independently, doing everything yourselves? What would be like a little secret cheat code list that you could give a young band? Yeah.
So first off, the internet, just generally, I back in my day, it was not as you couldn't just go to YouTube. You had to actually search the Google. I remember 3 pages deep you had to go. But
it's true.
For young bands, I mean, so I actually maybe about a year ago came out with a DIY band course through Spectre Digital with Glenn Fricker, and where I go in deep into DIY merch, DIY touring. If there's one thing that I think changed the trajectory and the face of Lords of the Trident, forever, it was learning to print our own t-shirts. And it is so ridiculously, stupidly easy to print your own t-shirts. You need maybe $80 in materials, maybe, to make a really professional looking t-shirt. And all of the materials that I make these, t-shirts out of and screen prints out of, I just go to Goodwill, and I buy curtain fabric, and I buy, shitty wood from Home Depot that's in the dollar bin, and I can make 500 t-shirts more, plus. I mean, they last for a long, long time. And the nice thing, so new bands, they always want to try to diversify. They want to get their name out there. They want to have something on their merch table that they can sell. The problem is that they're new enough where they don't understand their market. They don't understand their general the type of people that are coming to their shows and what they want to buy, right? So you might come up with this amazing design. You think this design is incredible and amazing, and it's always going to fly off the shelves. And then you have to make bare minimum 60 t-shirts because you're going through a local company, and then they sit in your basement for 5 years until you finally just give them away because you're like, get this shit out of my basement, right?
I have done that.
Yeah, everybody's done that. I've done that too, right? And the thing is you never know what design is going to be a hit and what design is going to be a flop. So if you have the opportunity to print these shirts yourself, you can print 5. Right? You can print 5 for the same price that you print 500. It's still going to be $3 a shirt or whatever, to print 5 than to print 500. But you print 5 and you bring them to a show. And if all 5 of them sell and people are like, where can I get more of these shirts? Then you got a hit on your hands. And if over the course of, 2-3 shows, none of them sell, then you haven't wasted any money. You've wasted maybe $40 on materials, about it, instead of wasting $400 on 60 shirts that are going to live in your basement for the rest of the But there's endless opportunity for bands, not just in the merch side of things, but in video production, social media, in touring. There's endless opportunities for bands out there who have creative ideas and aren't afraid to try things and fail and learn from their failures, because it's a lot easier to do that and then to recover and be have the next stepping stone be right in front of you than to say have a new band try to go right to Europe or we're gonna play a 4-week US tour and nobody knows who the hell we are. That's a bad idea, So small stepping stones, you learn from your failures, you can continue that. But print your own damn t-shirts. Jesus Christ, that's my big hack right there.
That is very cool, and that was not the answer I was expecting, and I think that's very interesting. And I have a follow-up. What would be a one color design What is basically, just talk us through how people can make their own merch.
Super easy, and again, I go into like 100 all the detail on the DIY merch course that I have out. But essentially, the process is this: you buy some wood, you make a box, right? You buy some sheer curtain fabric, and the more tight knit is the more like pixel density that you have on this thing. You staple the curtains to the box, you duct tape it down real tight. And then you buy this stuff called emulsion paint. You can get it at any craft store, and essentially it's UV reactant paint. So you cover the box with the curtain fabric in this paint. You let it dry in a dark place with no UV. So in your basement, all the lights turned off. You get one of those like bug bulbs or the red bulbs you see in the photo labs and that kind of stuff. Then you go down to your UPS store or your local print shop, and you get them to print out your cool ass design that you designed in GIMP because you're too cheap for Photoshop, and you have them printed out on transparency paper, so the overhead projector film that you used to see in the schools. You get a 150 watt light bulb, and then you hang it 18 inches from your box. You put the transparency on top of it, and you let it sit for about an hour and 10 minutes. And I usually like to move it every a third. I like to kind of move it back and forth. And what that does is that the black of your design that's on that transparency paper will reject the UV light. The transparent part will accept the UV light and it'll harden. So as soon as that's done, you take it to the sink, you wash it out, and boom, you have a screen, a negative of your design. Then all you got to do is you just get a shirt, you put that screen on the shirt, you put some shirt ink in it, you get a squeegee, you can just buy them online for like $8 and go, whoop, whoop, and then that's it. You've printed your shirt. You're done. It is insanely easy. I wish, if I knew that I could do that at the beginning of the band, I would have made so much more money. And it is insanely easy. And again, if you want to hear all the details, all the little itty bitty, things that I've learned along the way, check out the course.
Absolutely. I will definitely drop the link in the description of this podcast, peeps. It's definitely worth it if you're a band thinking about doing more things yourselves. Back to the beginning, when you were Lords of Trident was kicking off, was doing everything yourselves in the plans, or is that something that happened over time? Did you always want to be an independent band, or did you have the big dreams of being on the label?
Oh, everybody has a big dream of being on a label until you learn what a label is all about. Everybody's very excited and has that rock star dream. And I think honestly, the being independent was never 100% in the cards. It was just like, how do we get from the garage to touring locally, and then how do we get from touring locally to touring regionally, and then how do we get from touring regionally to touring nationally and then internationally, and 99.9% of it is like you just got to do shit yourself so that you get noticed. Ultimately, a label comes in and capitalizes on years and years and years and years of your hard work and grinding, right? And none of that, there's no situation nowadays where a label's going to be like, there's going to be a guy in the back with a chest hair and a gold chain go like, there's lots of Trident kids. They got something. I can see them being something in 4 or 5 years. We're going to give them $40,000 and they're going to go into the studio and they're going to make a big splash. You see, man? That never happens. It never ever happens. If it did happen, it definitely doesn't happen anymore. So, in order to be on a label, in order to play the giant festivals, in order to be seen by amazing podcasts like Vox&Hops, you gotta put out so much material and so much work yourself, and no one's gonna help you do it. And then some people decide to go the label route after they've put in years and years and years of blood, sweat, and tears, and they decide to to see what the label thing is all about because maybe they're still in love with that idea. We're definitely not in love with that idea. We actually had a major label court us for a while, and they said something to me that broke my brain, and this is why we decided to cut off ties with them. Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with Lords of the Trident, We've been independent for, at this point, I mean, we've been a band for like 15 years. We've been independent the entire time. We've toured all around the U.S. We've done, I don't even know how many music videos we have out there. We've got 10 albums. We've got, and at the time we were talking to this major label, we were just about to go on a self-funded, self-put-together tour of Europe. Our first tour of Europe. And this is like, year 4 maybe of our giant festival, Mad Power Fest, right? So we're kind of like, I mean, we do so much shit that it's ridiculous. Like we do way too much shit, way more shit than any other band that I know of, just because I have a problem standing still. But the label in question, they had an offer on the table. We were looking back and forth on it. We said, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's sign. Let's go ahead and do it. This label had 2 owners. One was in Chicago and one was in like LA. The one in Chicago was all like gung ho. Yes, sign Lords of the Trident. Oh my God. They work harder than any band on our label. Like, Jesus Christ. The one in LA, I think maybe wasn't into the costumes. Maybe wasn't into the big stage show. This is, theoretical. I'm not 100% sure. But he emailed me something that destroyed my brain, and I'm still pissed. Even thinking about this pisses me off. But for like an entire day, I couldn't talk because of how I was just like and he emailed me the one sentence. He said, "I'd like to see you doing more." And I was like, we're literally about to go to fucking Europe. Ourselves. We put the whole thing together. We run a giant festival. We have 10 out, so I was like, all right, that's it. We're done. We're not going to do it. We're not going to sign with you. And it was actually kind of good that we didn't, because it was like 2019, on the verge of 2019, 2020, right? So it's like, oh, well, that worked out. That was fine. That was fine.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Good for you for standing your ground and putting all the work in and knowing that you've done enough. And
I think there are some labels that do a good job for their, for their the people on the label. And I think that the need for a label is something that is not necessary nowadays, as long as you're willing to watch some YouTube videos and put in the work. Like, anyone can figure out how to make a good ass music video. You just gotta watch a lot of music. You can just watch a lot of YouTube, watch a lot of music videos, and watch a lot of tutorials and figure shit out. Anybody can figure out how to do a successful tour. Again, you gotta watch a lot of YouTube videos. You can buy my course, or just whatever. But there's so many opportunities nowadays in terms of the information being out there for bands that there hasn't been previously. And it's just a separation of, like, do you want to do the work, or do you want to have somebody take most of your money and then they do the work? Like, maybe they do the work. Maybe. That's another thing. It's like, it's not guaranteed. I think a lot of bands go onto labels because of the promise of publicity and all that sort of stuff, and like blowing up. And there was one of my good friends who was on a major label, told me, he said, Ty, you can just pay the publicist that they use.
Hire, exactly.
You could just they'll take your money. They don't necessarily just work for that label. They'll work for you too.
Exclusive clauses. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we've been doing, and it's been very good. Very, 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 very good. So
very, very. You mentioned a few times music videos. We're in 2023 now. Do you think that it is utterly, crucially important for bands to have good music videos?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
What is the reasoning behind that?
When you hear of a new band, like, what's the first thing that you do? For me, when I hear of a new band, I go to YouTube, type in their name. And the more content that I can consume from this new band, the higher chance of me becoming a fan of them. Even if it's not necessarily amazing quality, if it's not like, directed by Steven Spielberg music videos, like, the more opportunity I have to ingest what they've been putting out, the more opportunity that is to convert me into somebody who's going to come to the show, buy a t-shirt, tell my friends about them. If I can't find anything about your band, I can't really like tell if I like it or not, you know? So, and I think, you know, I think for a lot of bands, the medium of YouTube, of a music video, is a good way to both get your music across, get your style across, get your look across, and kind of get the vibe of the band across. You know, depending on what music video you watch, and what types of music videos bands make, you can tell, like, oh, is this a band that's like a bunch of fun guys hanging out? Is this a band that is like very deathly serious about my music? Oh my god, you know, or is this a band that there's all sorts of different vibes that you can get, you know, if depending on what you watch. So I think the music video is a very, very powerful medium to create more fans and to instantly kind of get that vibe going for anybody who's going to get into you, you know.
Absolutely, very interesting, and I think I do agree with the understanding the vibe of the band, the brand of the band. You'll get like a more in-depth perception of what you're stepping into when you actually get to see something that they're portraying versus just listening to it. As we were talking, something that came to me in my mind, I know it's very difficult. You keep mentioning that you're doing so much work yourselves. Band member hustle. How hard is it to keep a lineup of everybody doing stuff and then you yourself hypothetically not getting upset if other people aren't pulling their weight? And do you expect all your band members to have the same hustle as you?
No. I think I've, you know, come to the realization, you know, over these many years that I'm just a big stupid moron who, you know, won't stop and can't stop. And so, yeah, no, I've come to peace with the fact that like none of the other band members are going to be as hustly or as they're not going to do as much as I do. And that's okay. Because inherently as a singer, I don't have to load gear as much. So I have a complex about that where it's like, God, I'm not lifting heavy things. I need to pull my own weight, so to speak, you know. So I do the books and I do the Excel spreadsheets and I book the tours and I do all this. I'm the band dad, basically. And I read an interesting book. It is actually kind of silly. I picked up, and this was many years into, you know, running a successful band. I picked up How to Start a Band for Dummies, and it's one of those like for dummies books. And
yeah. I have that actually. So
there's a section early on where it's like they talk about the archetypes of band members, and they talk about there's the archetype of the leader, and there's the archetype of the talent, right? And they say that it's very, very rare for a band to have a leader who is also the talent, you know. And if that happens, unless they have a very good support structure in terms of management, they will burn out, right? What's more likely is that you have someone who is the spreadsheet guy, and then you have somebody who's actually writing the material, right? And that's kind of the vibe that we have in Lords of the Trident. Now, I do, you know, I write all my melody lines, I write all the lyrics, and I've written a song or two, but I'm definitely not the songwriting dude. You know, I'm not going to make a chorus on songwriting, you know. I leave that to the other guys. And so, you know, in order to pick up the slack, so to speak, you know, I'm doing the rest of the everything, you know, making the website, handling all the merch orders, booking the tours, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's important for any band that's listening to understand that, you know, there needs to be a separation of jobs and priorities, but you need to put the strength where the strength lies. If somebody's an amazing songwriter, you shouldn't expect them to be a Twitch streamer as well, right? You know, if they don't want to. If somebody loves pivot tables, like, there's your fucking budget guy right there, you know. if you've got a subscription to like the Excel Insider Club, you know, there's your band manager. That's the guy, you know. So yeah, it's that kind of a thing. I don't expect the other guys to do quite as much as I do because I'm stupid and I also love Excel. So.
Is that something that you had to learn over time? That your other band members weren't going to put as much work in?
Yes and no. Yeah, I think, I think early on there were a lot of situations. Some bands, like for instance, some bands do really good where they all get everybody in the same room and they start jamming and they write a song together, right? Some bands do that wonderfully. A band like us, you get us in a room and you try to write a song together, it does not work. It absolutely does not work. We need to be like in separate locations. This guy writes the pre-chorus, this guy writes the chorus. I come up with the lyrics separately. You can't expect that kind of inspiration on the spot to happen, that collaboration on the spot to happen. And so I think I took that and sort of applied it towards the management and the business side of Lords. Like, there are some things that I am very good at, but I don't expect the rest of the guys to be good at it. And I think I learned that early on, that it's best to just kind of, as a leader, as a manager, as somebody who's in charge, quote unquote, in charge, right, of the band, it's best to let the people who love doing X, Y, or Z, let them do X, Y, or Z, and don't expect them to balance the books. I'm very lucky that our bassist is a big giant IT nerd like me, and so I can bounce ideas off of him, and I can give him, I can say like, yo, can you tidy up the Google Drive? And he's like, yes. Oh my God. I have an idea for a schema. I'm like, fuck yeah. A schema. Oh, hell yeah. So yeah.
Mad with Power. I read a little bit about all the big festivals. Everything was sort of shunning you guys or like leading you along, saying that you were booked and then losing emails. And
do you want the insider dirt? The insider scoop, I think a lot of people here are familiar with Prog Power USA, right? Like, thumbs up if you're familiar with Prog Power USA. Okay. So it's run by 3 booking agents, and essentially, without going into the long version of the story, one of the booking agents, Nathan Block, who runs the Wednesday night, thing, offered us a spot and then lost our email, and then he promised us next year. Oh, and then he lost that email. Oh, and then he promised us next year. Oh, and then Glory Hammer came and bought your spot out from under you. Oh, I'm so sorry. They had to do it. And then came back the next year or 2 years later, and he said, you guys can play for $15,000 payable to me.
There's people still buy onto festival, like big bands still buy onto festivals? I don't get that.
And not just buy onto festival, like not payable to Prog Power, payable to me, right? And I came to find out that Prog Power had no idea that he was taking money. He still books for them, by the way, which is very, very interesting. And it was around that time. It was around the time that Glory Hammer, quote unquote, bought our spot. I later found out that was not true. That it was just something he made up. But it was around that time where I said, you know what? It's clear to me they're never going to book us. And so, fuck it, I'm going to start my own festival. And there was a bunch of our friends who were kind of mid-tier, power metal people in the United States who were also being, just kind of passed over and over and over again. And they had no real festival to kind of call their own, So I was like, well, fuck it. I'm gonna make a better Prog Power. It's gonna be cooler because it's gonna have arcade games and pinball, and we're gonna, I've been going to festivals for many years. I'm gonna try to take all of the shittiness out of the festival. I'm gonna make a festival that is like 100% directed at the attendees having an easy, good, time with all of the shittiness of the festival, circuit kind of taken out. And so that was the whole idea with Mad with Power, is to sort of make a power metal festival that could cater more to those mid to mid high tier power metal acts in the United States, and trad metal acts too. I like trad metal too. Mostly just like generally clean vocals or like super nerdy bands, like which this is pretty broad, but I was just sick of. I was sick of. There's a lot of, and I'm sure you've run into it too. There's just a lot of people in the music industry that are predatory and shitty, and there's not much you can do or say about it because they're in positions of power. you know, and I just got really sick of it. And I'm like, you know what? I need to make a festival that's like the antithesis of that, you know, where it's more about the community. It's more about the aspect of when you go to a festival, when you go to a metal festival, a lot of it is about like seeing your family, you know, the family you've created. And I heard people at Prague Power, you know, who go every year, and they don't care who's playing because it's like
just a reunion with their friends.
Yeah. And so Mad with Power, the directive of Mad with Power is like, what if we made a festival where the main focus is understanding that aspect, where it's more about getting together with friends than it is necessarily being excited for X, Y, or Z band. You know, we still try to book good bands. We still try to put on an amazing festival, but like, you know, we do a lot more around the aspect of community building. You know, we have a pre-fest where it's mostly just hangouts. We have you know, the Cheese Curd Metal Massacre where we all go up dressed up in our battle vests and we try to sell out the farmers market, you know, out of cheese curds. And it's a lot more towards that. I want to build a festival where it doesn't matter who I book, you know, where I know that no matter who I book,
out
it's
no
gonna
matter what,
or at least it's gonna break even. You know, I don't care about selling out. I just care about not losing my house. That's all I care about.
Well, it's going well because you're upping this year. I've read you're going to a 2,000 cap room.
2,500.
There's arcade games all around. What else can people expect?
Yeah, so if you come to Mad with Power Fest, it's a 2-day festival. We hold it on the third weekend of August every year in Madison. Here, we're moving to the Sylvie, which is it's a brand new venue, 2,500 capacity, 3 floors, and we are filling it with 60 to 70 free play arcade games, pinball games, and the like. Like I said, it's very focused on the fest going experience. So all the arcade games and pinball games are all on free play. We have a bunch of amazing bands. Unleash the Archers is headlining one night. We've got an amazing headliner for night number 2 that I can't talk about yet because I haven't 100% signed the contract yet. But it's going to be if they say yes, them plus Unleash the Archers, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. Essentially. But, we've got other amazing bands. Seven Spires, we've got us, we've got Will to Run, we've got Seven Kingdoms, we've got Greyhawk, we got... it's a great time. MadisPowerFest.com. We do like a pre-fest meetup at an arcade where we all, get together and hang out. We have a Magic the Gathering tournament that happens at the festival. We have like I said, we got the cheese curd metal, the metal cheese curd massacre, where we go to the farmer's market, which is about half a mile from the venue, and we just try to destroy all of the cheese curd supply. It's really a festival designed towards the festival goer. It's one of those festivals that I hope people go to and like make new friends, because that's happened to me so many times at many of these festivals. That's kind of the vibe that I want to give off here. We talk a lot about the new wave of nice metal buds, the NWO NMB, and so I do my damnedest to book and promote bands that have that mentality of like a rising tide raises all ships. We're all in it together. Nobody's in competition. Just because you're a fan of Seven Spires doesn't mean you can't be a fan of Lords of Trident.
Exactly.
So
silly.
Yeah, so that's like the general idea. The main focus, from day one, other than the fans coming to Mad with Power Fest, the main focus from day one has been, I would love all of these bands to meet each other in person, so that when they are going out on tour, they have just a big list of bands that they know that are cool that they can hang out with, because like. It's one thing to like send a Facebook message and like somebody's page and, follow their posts or whatever. It's a whole nother thing to get in a room with them and actually like, interact in person and understand their vibe as a human. I think there's a lot more connection that happens when that happens. And so, if I can get all of the mid to high tier power metal bands in a room together and basically be like, and kiss. Now kiss, be friends. If I can do that, then what we can do is we can make a scene in the United States where when somebody is 14, 15, 16 and they're making their first band, they look and they see, oh my God, Lords of the Trident is best friends with Seven Kingdoms, and they're super best friends with Seven Spires, and they're doing this and this. This seems like a really great community to be a part of. I think I'm going to make a power metal band instead of making an Angry at Your Dad radio rock, band or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the power metal genre in the United States is obviously a lot weaker in terms of support and output than it is over in Europe. And I think that this is a way that we can kind of seed the future of the power metal scene in the United States by making this outlook of the new wave of nice metal buds or whatever you want to call it, like kind of a reality for any band that wants to be part of our genre, part of our scene. So that's kind of the general the evil secondary plan of like everyone would be friends. Yes.
Well, good for you. And I'm seeing a lot more of that in death metal as well.
Yeah.
Death metal supporting each other, working together. High tides raise all ships, and that's very, very refreshing. As you were talking, the first thing that came to mind, the hardest thing that I have when organizing my fests, Brutal Montreal, Brutal Winnipeg coming up, is the beer aspect of things. How difficult is it to bring in that many arcade games on a 3-story building?
Oh, actually, way, 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 way easier this year. At least I'm hoping. This is the first year we're in this new venue, but this venue is a very big, very modern venue, and it has a loading dock for a semi, and it's got ramps. It's got ramps everywhere. The other venue, I loved it, but the other venue did not have that many ramps. There was a lot of stairs. There was a second story with no elevator. Getting all of the stuff up those stairs and down those stairs was a pain in the ass. So I'm very excited. It is definitely this year is a make or break year for Mad with Power, because in the past we had done 20 cabinets, plus pinball, right? So we had like 6 pinballs and 15 cabinets, and that was in a 500 capacity venue. Well, now we've upped it to a 2,500, so that means we're basically going to need like 60, cabinets, pins, all that sort of stuff. And so I've done a festival in a 500 capacity venue for 5 years, 6 years if you count COVID and all that sort of stuff. But so I know the economics of scale. I know how to run a spreadsheet for a 500 capacity venue, and I know how to like break even. What I don't know yet is, will that spreadsheet translate to a 2,500 capacity venue? And what kind of margins are we going to expect with different, this and that and the other stuff. So I'm hopeful, but the back of the napkin costs to put this festival on for this year is $70,000.
Holy shit.
And that's not some corporation is going to do 70. That's me. That is like,
holy shit.
I am the person who is in charge of the purse strings and ultimately on the hook for paying these bands. And so essentially, if we don't break even this year, there may not be a future for Mad with Power, because we may not be able to do the same sort of festival. So I'm optimistic. I think things will go well. I think with Unleash the Archers as a headliner, I think we'll be okay. If this other headliner signs on, I think we'll be okay, but it is definitely something that is weighing on my mind. It's a logistical challenge. At the same time, I think for many bands, right, if you don't reach, then you don't grow, and so it's a risk. And we're going to try it, and we're going to see what happens. So
that's super sick. And people go to the fest, get your tickets when they're on sale. Are they on sale now, or are they coming on sale?
They'll be on sale probably soonish. I'm still trying. I'm trying to see if we can solidify the contract with the Friday night headliner. I would guess that tickets will probably go on sale late January, early February for Patreon backers only, and that we're going to keep it Patreon exclusive for about 3 weeks. and then we will open it up to general admission. We do have things like, silver VIP, gold VIP, sponsorship VIP tickets. And historically, all of those tickets have gone to Patreon backers. And actually last year, 53% of all the tickets that were sold to Patreon backers. So, it's pretty crazy when you think about it.
I'm doing a whole new segment called Fight the Hops, where we talk about, or we think about, and we look into ourselves about something that you would like to improve upon yourself right now. What was something that you're working on, a small obtainable goal that hypothetically throughout 2023 is something that you can accomplish?
Yeah, I have it right off the cuff. So I've been talking a lot about the new wave of Nice Metal Buds. I've been talking a lot about our friends and our friend bands. I would say one of our closest friend bands is Seven Kingdoms out of Florida. And they have done something amazing where they just started on their Patreon. They started a Seven Kingdoms fitness challenge.
Oh shit, that's cool.
And for me, it starts Saturday. I've got this tonight, so I'm like I'm fucking drinking, and then I got a show tomorrow, so I'm fucking drinking. But then Saturday, I start the fitness challenge, and I got to cut out most of the drinking, we'll say. And so yeah, one of the things I'd like to improve upon is I want to look good naked, basically, and right now, it's like 5 out of 10. I'm like a Wisconsin 6, which is like an LA 2. So I'd like to get more like a Wisconsin 8, LA 4, I'd like to try for that. So I'm going to do the fitness challenge with my buds in Seven Kingdoms. I dropped 20 pounds right before or right after Mad with Power, or during Mad with Power, because I ended up testing for my 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, that's sick.
I've been doing that for about 20 years, and our tests go all day. We had this thing. So for 3rd degree black belt, we have this. Without going, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's worth it. It's pretty metal when you think about it. There is, for 3rd degree black belt, we have these things called mental disciplines for each degree of black belt and for each thing. The mental discipline for 1st degree black belt is you take your top off, you lay down on a bed of nails, and they break a cinder block with a sledgehammer on your abs. Right?
Wow.
So, and by 1st degree black belt, we're talking at least 8 years, right? It takes at least 8 years to get 1st degree. You've done thousands upon thousands upon thousands of sit-ups. Your abs are fine. It's more of a physics kind of a thing, right? For 3rd degree black belt, which is what I was going to test for, which was what I did test for. You take your shirt off, you lay down on a bed of nails, and in between the cinder block, the sledgehammer, and your naked chest, they have 2 razor-sharp katanas that they put on your chest, and then they put these cinder blocks on top of them. They usually do 2 or 3, and then they break them with the swords, like, jutting into your chest, right? So the whole general gist of it, it's still a physics trick, but if you have a round chest, you get cut. But the problem is if the swords go sideways, then you go to the hospital. Then it's like you get a bunch of stitches. If they just stay on your chest, you get cut, but you don't get like you get superficial kind of cuts. So I did not want to go to the hospital. So I ended up dropping 20 pounds so that my stomach was a little bit more flat, just in case the katanas were to shift or move. So I did that, went and tested. And it turned out, because of COVID, they ended up having to move the test. I flew out to Boston. They ended up having to move the test from this park where they normally do the whole katana shit to Harvard Medical School quad. So I was in this beautiful Harvard Medical School quad surrounded by these ancient for America's standards, buildings on all sides. And they couldn't fucking take the katanas out because they thought, because it was like an insurance risk, because Harvard Medical School was like, no. And I'm like, dude, if I get cut, I'm in the Harvard Medical School. Yeah, like any one of these students could get extra credit by just stitching me up. Like, come on. But I wanted to do it so bad. I had multiple cameras. I was ready to get that sick footy. I was going to do slow motion, like, and they just didn't do it. And so anyway, I got my 3rd degree black belt. I did not get to do the katanas. I'm hopeful one day that I will, but first I got to lose the 20 pounds because then, Halloween happened and there was a bowl of candy in the house, and like that's the end of your weight loss journey right there, is a bowl of candy at Halloween. So
that is insane. I did not know that. The 3rd degree katana story. The question is, are you really a 3rd degree if you didn't do it? But that's for yourself to ask yourself.
That's more of a personal growth type of a question, isn't it?
Love it. Fight the hops, people. What are you guys going to be working on? Think about that. Beer collabs. Now, has Lord of the Tridents made a beer yet?
I'd love to. Honestly, I'd absolutely love to. I'm such a beer nerd. I would absolutely die to make a beer collab. The weird thing is that, like, a lot of the beer, there's many breweries in Madison, but they're all very, and I don't want to discourage this. I don't want this to sound discouraging, but they're like very hipster, and you come to them, you're like, we're a metal band. They're like, no, come back to me when you're playing the electrified banjo. What we have done at Collab Through, and what I'm very proud of, is there is a local meadery.
That makes sense. That too. That's on brand.
Yeah, and we have they actually, for many years, they have brewed a mead specifically for Mad with Power. It's the Mad with Power mead. And it's an amazing mead. It's a cranberry and tamarind, and it's a sharp, sour but mildly sweet mead, and it's effervescent. It's really good. It's carbonated, and we have it on tap every year at Mad with Power, or their Hammer Smash Cherry. You can tell they're heavy metal fans. But yeah, we've been working with Boss Mead for many years. They've been in our corner, and probably our first like official sponsorship. And the most fun thing about working with Boss Mead is they made this Mad with Power mead, and it was a big hit, and it was a huge hit in their tap room, and they decided to bottle it and sell it. And so Boss Mead sells in grocery stores all over southern Wisconsin. And I'll never forget the day that I walked into my local grocery store and I saw Mad with Power mead sitting on the shelf and my big dumb face right on it. And I grabbed it and I ran up to the dude at the counter, like, look, and I was like running around the store, like, look, it's me. I'm on a grocery store item. So excited. I have no, people are probably very, they're very nonplussed. They're like, okay. Are you gonna buy that? Or like, no, it's me. It's me. So, but yeah, I still get a kick out every time I go into the grocery store. I'm like, there's like my dumb face. Look at that. So yeah.
Everyone here knows that I love having my face on a beer. It's a fun thing.
I mean, if you have any breweries who want to do some big stupid power metal, and put my big dumb face on something, like, dude, I'll put my big dumb face on anything.
I have one last question for you, but before that, we will open up the floor to the Thirsty Thursday gang. Who here has a question for Ty from Lords of the Trident?
I will say I did see a question earlier when we were talking about DIY stuff, and I think it was Peter. Yeah.
Peter is from Hath, the guitarist of Hath, and he's awesome. Yeah.
So Peter said, how did you figure out all the DIY stuff? How did you figure out making the shirts? I ended up becoming friends with this guy called named Martin Atkins. He was the drummer for Nine Inch Nails and Pigface and Killing Joke, and he ended up teaching at a media college here in Madison. Big white-haired British guy, and we won a Battle of the Bands competition, and he at some point he said one of the prizes was to have like a business sit down with him and like figure out your band's business trajectory, because he ran like media business. And he says, I could listen to him talk forever. He's he just sort of, he's got this really big Cockney accent, and he's just like, your band is terrible. What are you doing? And I walked in and I'm like, he's like, well, are you printing your own shirts? And I was like, no. He's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? That's a terrible thing. You need to fucking print your shirts. What are you I'll show you how to do it. It's super easy. And I would listen to him insult my band for like hours. It was, I loved him. So that's how I learned, and I basically like worship at the altar of Martin Atkins, who's I feel is like one of the original DIY dudes. So
very, very sick. Philip Dervites of the Whispers from the Void podcast. You have a question for Ty. Go for it.
Hello, Ty. So my question, simple. Lords of the Trident, where the name is coming from. So because I saw that, I was like, okay, Lords of the Trident, so it's talking about Poseidon. But I see the name, I'm like, okay, first album is called Death and Sandwich. I'm like, it doesn't, like, it's not talking about Poseidon. So I'm curious, what is it?
So, the honest to God answer for this, and I honestly wish I had a better, I wish I had a better origin story for the name. But when Lords of the Trident started, we essentially the guitarist Aki, the Asian metal in the band, Aki and I are best friends, and we roomed together junior year in college in the dorms, which is kind of unheard of. You usually like move out of the dorms by junior year, but we decided to room together. We met the original lead guitarist of the band, Socrates of Shred, in the dorms, and one night they were just like noodling. They were on their practice amps and like, and I was playing Counter-Strike in the corner on my computer or whatever, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and Aki goes, hey, we came up with this song idea. Could you record this on your computer? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. Let's figure it out. So we were up until 3 a.m. recording the first minute and 45 seconds of this dumb song. And I think around 1 a.m, they were like, this needs vocals. Like, Ty, you sing. You're in a band. I was in a band in college, at the time. It was more of an alternative rock band, kind of like Pearl Jam, Like, yeah, just do like a fucking, like, do like a Manowar, like, you could do that, right? Like, and I was like, maybe? I don't know. Maybe I could do it, So it was like 1 a.m, and it was 1 a.m. brain, So they hit record, and I just started singing lyrics, and those lyrics are still the lyrics of that song to this day. Like, the shit that just came out of my brain at 1 a.m, I'm like, through the night, through the dawn of time. It's this stupid, crazy shit. So we finished this up, and we were going to post it to Facebook. And at that time, now here's where I age myself. Now, at that time, kids, Facebook used to only be for college people. And we were friends with only the people in our college. So, there was only people in the dorms that we were friends with. So basically, only the people in that general area were going to hear it. And I was all ready to post it. By the time we finished, it was 3 a.m. I was all ready to post it, but I didn't want to call, we were making the MP3, and it was like, artists, with the name was staring me in the face. I didn't want to call it like Ty, Brian, and Aki. I wanted to call it something like epic. Ooh, and so Aki looks at me and he's like, Ty, we got to name this something. I'm like, yeah, Lords of the Trident Unite. And so we're like, yeah, we'll do that. Lords of the Trident Unite. And so that's what we named it. It was like completely just out of my brain. No rhyme or reason as to why I chose that. And we were Lords of the Trident Unite for a while, maybe the first year of the band, and then people just kept saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna go see Trident tonight, or we're going to Trident practice, or blah blah blah, and so we said, oh, this is too long. A couple of our early posters, you still see Lords of the Trident Unite on there, and so we dropped the Unite part, and then we just became Lords of the Trident. So it really means nothing. A lot of people have asked me, like, oh, is it a Game of Thrones reference? It's like, dude, I didn't even I had no idea that was even a thing. It's literally gibberish. I don't know, you know, so.
That's interesting because, like, when you said Lords of the Trident Unites, I thought it was Power Ranger reference.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, you should do like a cartoon show called Lords of the Trident.
Oh yeah. What I want to do, you know, what I've wanted to do for many, many years, and I've told the guys this, and they keep rejecting the idea, is I want to make an album called Unite, you know, where it's just sort of like, yeah, for the really, really old school fans, and they're just like, nah.
A concept about a band that is doing like Lords of the Trident.
There you go. There it is.
That's amazing. I had read that you were a little bit inebriated when you came up with the name.
You know, yeah. I mean, we were in the dorms, so it was, you know, what else were you going to do?
So that was a drunken idea that turned out for the good. What is the worst drunken band-related idea? Where it's a really good idea when you're drunk, but then when you wake up, you're like, oh, no, this is not a good idea.
So, you know, that's a really good question, and I think the problem with that question is that we're a lot of like generally straight-laced kind of nerds, you know, like we like to have fun and go to bed at 11. Hey, you know, like so there's very few opportunities to get into like really problematic or, you know, questionable behavior when you're drunk. I'll say one of the most amazing things. So we just got back from a Japan tour, and we ended up at a private club in Roppongi in Tokyo, which is the red light district. And the guy there was probably Yakuza. Like, he had tattoos everywhere. Like, probably organized crime. But, you know, he was extremely nice, and we're friends on Facebook now. So, I mean, like, you know. But, I mean, like,
He's got to be a good guy.
We walked in, and there's, like, all of these, like, white, anemic-looking, bored-looking women smoking, just, you know. And they're all, like, reasonably attractive, you know. And he brings in 5 pitchers of beer, 30 shots, 175 at Grey Goose, a Don Julio, you know, 10 energy drinks, pizzas, popcorn, and, you know, we're like 7 shots in, and we're all like, yeah, you know, at 2 a.m. in Tokyo, and he's like, do you like, your band is married? Because we had actually my wife was there, my bassist wife was there, guitarist wife was there, and I was like, I'm married. So our guitarist Aki isn't married, and Brett's wife is back in Wisconsin. He's like, oh, do you want to ladies? And at the time I was like, No. Now, if I was a little bit drunker, or if Brett, our drummer, was in that conversation, he probably would have said yes, because he was like, we were back in the room, and he was like, well, what? We could just talk to him. What's the harm? We just talk to him. You know, I think he was just interested in like seeing what the life of like a person who hangs out at a bar and like makes money by the hour talking to people who come to the bar was, you know. It was very innocent, but I was like no, we're good. So if he had made that decision, apparently how the bar stays in business is like all the drinks are free, all the pizza and popcorn and whatever you want is free. But once the ladies come in, that's when the charges start.
Wow. So you guys totally were smarter than the bar.
Accidentally. Like, I didn't know that at the time. We found that out later, you know. But if he was good, you
didn't have someone like from Japan with you the whole time?
No. I speak Japanese, so we
okay.
Yeah, we figured it all out. But I didn't realize, like, different bars operate differently, and, you know.
Absolutely.
And so, but yeah, so we ended up drinking a lot for free. And the best part is it was so sweet. He wrapped up the Grey Goose and the Don Julio and he sent it home with us. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was like half. It was like half empty, and we're like, can we just bring this in an Uber? What is it? What? He's like, oh yes, Japan, no problem. Okay, I'm like,
unbelievable.
So we carried that Don Julio all the way through the rest of the tour with us until our last final days, where we finished it off at a celebration that we were done with the tour. So, yeah.
Well, being good boys pays sometimes, people.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, we're just kind of like
it doesn't, but it was a great story.
Boring nerds. No. We don't really get into trouble all that much. So,
West Coast Jerry.
What's up, Ty? Thanks for doing this. By the way, 2 questions. One, the record exec that you said no to. Did you tell him why you said no? And then the second question, unrelated to that, is what's included in your course?
Yeah, so the record exec that I said no to, I didn't even respond to him. I responded to his, like, the person we were talking to, and I was like, all right, no deal, basically. And that was after, like, 3 days of just going, like, I remember being at work that morning, like, getting that email, driving to work, and then staring at the floor for, like, 2 hours, just like, so yeah, no, we never told him, but it's okay. It worked out. Everything was great. The bands. So we were going to sign to that label because of 2 friend bands who had also signed to that label, and we thought, and one of the friend bands, who shall remain nameless, was kind of on the up and up. And we're like, well, one of us is going to get to the point where we can do, like, U.S. tours. And wouldn't it be great if we were, like, we're already friends with these dudes. Wouldn't it be great if we were on the same label, so we're basically, like, the shoe-in to be the opening act, or to, like, swap every night with them, which was the main reason why we were doing it. So, and then what's involved in the course? So I've got 2, technically 3 courses with Spectre Digital. The DIY course is like a 2-in-1 thing, and they used to sell it as like a package. I'm not 100% sure if they split it up. There's a DIY merch course, which covers making T-shirts, making other items that are easily DIYable for your merch booth, and setting up your merch booth in a way to maximize sales using kind of like the psychology of salesmanship and the general, like, merch booth, using a lot of I've talked a lot to Alex from Psychostick. He has a master's in business psychology, so every time I talk to him, we're always talking about setting up a merch booth in such a way to maximize retention, sales, and things like that, and the different, like, psychological papers that are currently out about psychology in just general sales. He's an amazing treasure trove of knowledge that I've been able to tap into. So there's a lot of that in the course about different ways to set up the merch booth in such a way that will maximize your success. Because I think most bands out there know that, like, 90% of your income night to night comes from the merch booth, not the door, right? So the more time and effort and thought you put into the layout and how things are, and what you're selling and why you're selling it and that kind of stuff, the more money you can make and the better your road experience is. So that's one of the courses. The other course is DIY touring. So it's the entire roadmap of setting up a tour for success, how to do local, regional, and sometimes even national tours in the best way possible to basically guarantee that you come out more or less in the black. There's a couple of tidbits in there that I talk about. We've switched over to a lot more of, like, so I guess I'll just say real quick, one of the little tidbits is that we do the revolving compass of doom technique that we've kind of stolen or come up with, modified from Martin Atkins, where we pick a direction every month and we do a mini tour. So we're cultivating markets in like a 10, 11 hour driving radius and we hit the same market twice a year. And we've been doing that for a couple of years, and we actually haven't had any tours in the last 5-6 years that have come out in the red. We've made money on every single tour in the last 5 years, which I don't think is something that many bands can say or have done. And so I go through the entire process of how we set all that up and how we recommend people to set up, local, regional, national tours in the DIY touring stuff. We also have a whole spreadsheet that, automatically fills in stuff and tells you your miles per gallon and what you can expect to make and all that sort of stuff night to night. So that's two of them. The other one that I just released recently is called Own the Stage, a masterclass in vocal performance and technique. And that is basically a singing course. So we go through, I've been studying opera for the last 5 years. And so my opera instructor and I put together this course to teach vocal technique and exercises to increase your range, increase your stamina, and to keep you healthy on the road night to night. And on top of that, so he teaches that part, and I teach stage performance. So how to be engaging, how to fake charisma, how to, what sort of moves to use on the stage. And we even go into things like vocal EQ, common vocal effects, different styles of monitoring, and all that sort of stuff. It's a 5 or 6 hour course that we do on that. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to put together. We're already thinking about a part 2 for distorted vocals. We're thinking about doing a lot more in depth on screaming, growling, that kind of stuff. He's been really into that as of late. So
amazing. Up next, we have Peter from Half. Hail Half.
What's up, guys? Hey, Ty. I came up in DIY scenes, and I have a very big soft spot for power metal. So this has been one of my favorite interviews so far. Yay! Not a question, but I wanted to share some Wisconsin love. I was out there earlier this year, and if you're ever in Menominee, there's a newer brewery called Zymurgy, Zymurgy, I think. Okay. We played a show there. I think we were only their second or third metal show. But the people who run it love metal. They love throwing shows. And they said the town is so receptive to it. It was just they kind of like what you described, electric banjos. That's what they were used to. And on a whim, they threw a metal show, and the whole town showed up. So I just wanted to share that a little bit.
I just found it. Yeah, in Menominee. Oh. All right, I'm going to put that on my list. Thank you for that info. Zymurgy. Ooh.
Belgian Jasper, a question for Ty.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Ty. Great interview. Thank you for the energy that you bring. You keep an hour and 40 minutes entertaining, which is not Matt knows this better than anyone. That's not a given. A semi-serious question for you, because I'm really intrigued by, your drive of you clearly want to be a catalyst in the North American power metal scene. And, you mentioned it a couple of times that you're you want to help build a scene, which, let's be honest, it's not really there just yet. There's not a North American power metal scene. Power metal hasn't been popular in North America since 1988, but in the last 5 or 6 years, we're seeing both North American power metal bands, Canadian and American. I'm just going to keep it to the States and Canada for this. Apologies to all the Mexican listeners. But we're seeing a lot of those bands get more popular. And at the same time, I live in Toronto in Canada, but I'm from Belgium. A lot of European power metal bands started to go in, and trad metal bands started to go into the North America space as well, to tour more and more, which is cool. And something seems to be brewing there. Power metal seems to be more popular. In your perspective, living in the front lines, what has changed in the last 5 years that all of a sudden power metal is no longer the ugly duckling in North American metal, but is actually getting some time in the spotlight again?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think like many things in music, a lot of stuff goes in terms of popularity goes in waves, right? So you see things becoming popular and then becoming oversaturated, right? And I think I think one of the things that helps the U.S. power metal scene is the fact that it hasn't been, like you said, it hasn't been oversaturated, since the 80s. And in U.S. especially, we have a ton of various flavors of like death metal. Anytime that we're out and about and we say we are a metal band, instead of like a power metal band or whatever, even when we say we're a power metal band, for local booking agents, they almost always throw us together with like some flavor of death metal, and I think that there's such a divide and such a distance between a lot of the flavors of death metal and a lot of the flavors of power metal that for anyone in the know, putting them on a bill together doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? But in some cases it does, melodic death metal, that kind of thing, right? So for me, the reason that I think power metal is getting a little bit more popular nowadays in the U.S., and again, it's still a very, very, very much a niche subgenre, I think has a lot to do with the fact that I think people maybe are getting a little sick of their, or maybe sick is not the right word, but like oversaturated with like their local death metal band, or oversaturated with the type of hard radio rock that would that some people would be considered to be metal. Nowadays stuff like rap, trap, lo-fi is getting really popular in terms of what young people are listening to and what larger festivals are booking and seeing. And so I think the opportunity for power metal, and the reason why it's kind of gaining traction, is because it is I guess a bit of a softer side of metal, so much of a different genre from the more popular metal generally in America, that it can be seen as a quote unquote new genre. And I'd like to think that also the tight knitness of the community, how everybody is helping each other out and being friends and being on each other's tours. I'd like to think that's helping. It's obviously it's hard for me to say. It's like, are the seeds that I'm throwing, and that everybody, not just me, are the seeds that everybody is throwing into the ground, sprouting? It's hard to tell. It's under the dirt. You have no idea, right? But I'd hope, and I'd like to think that the general tight-knitness of the community is helping to bring people out to shows and to encourage people who are booking shows, booking tours, booking festivals, to think about booking, bands like us, bands like Seven Kingdoms, bands like Aether Realm, more melodic death, but still on the power side of things. I would hope that that's why things are kind of coming on the up and up. I think if we want it to continue to be a long-term growth, I think if we want to continue to see that trend continue, right? I think we really need to pay attention to fostering unity in the community and fostering a sense of togetherness, which is, it's kind of what I'm trying to do. But whether or not that will ultimately be successful, I guess that will be up to the ages to decide. Yeah.
Metallica, the person that put this interview together, she has a question.
So my question, I guess, probably a little obscure, but judging by how we met, I think it's fitting. What is your favorite piece of opera to sing when you were by yourself?
Oh, when I'm by myself, that's a great one. Lately it's been Recondita Armonia, the one I did with Rav. And I think the reason for that is it's kind of right in my ballpark of general range, but it has moments of stretching. So the B flat right at the end is a great litmus test for me when I'm warming up, when I'm singing. If I can hit that B flat cleanly and I can hit it in a good full voice, then I know, okay, I'm ready to go forward and sing more challenging things. If it's a little crispy, if it's like not quite there, if I go, then I know I got to do more warm-ups, or I know I got to like pull it back a little bit. It's seeming to be a little bit easier for me to sing that and to, you know, use that as a gauge rather than something like Nessun Dorma, rather than something like the Sad Clown aria, you know. Ridi Pagliaccio. It's just a little bit more of, yeah, it's good. It's a good warm up for me, and it's a good, you know, like where I'm at in the night kind of a thing. When I remember the first show in Tokyo on this tour, I closed myself into a very small bathroom and sang that just to kind of see where I was at. And it was like, I was like, all right, ready to fucking rock it. And what I didn't realize is that there was like all these ventilation systems that went out like into the main hall. So people were here, they're like, you know, like, and I walked out and there was a bunch of people who were like, oh, sugoi, whoa, you are very good, you are very good at singing. Wow, you're singing very good. Oh my God. So I was like, oh, sorry. This is warming up.
That's incredible. I love it very much.
Interesting how often Asian toilets have been part of this interview. Hell yeah. Dude, I could make this whole interview
It's a bookend, the beginning and the ending. I love it. I have one last question for you, Ty. Classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question. Now, I imagine that you must have used it after your drunken quarantine karaoke on this past New Year's, which lasted just about 6 hours. 6 hours long, and you drank 20 drinks and had 11 shots. I'm impressed. So every once in a while, it happens to everyone, especially after doing that. What is your hangover cure?
Oh man, I very, very simple, just like a shitload of water. Pedialyte, coconut water works. I feel like Pedialyte and coconut water, I don't know, you know, a lot of us, you know, seasoned drinkers have had that, and it just feels weird in your...
It's so syrupy.
It feels like heavy, you know? It does work. I would say water, Gatorade, for sure. The secret, so what a lot of people don't know about the drunken quarantine karaoke, this is number 6. So I've been a seasoned veteran of getting really drunk and singing poorly on camera. But, you know, the secret ahead of time is carbo loading. Like, I buy I buy like 3 pizzas and I'll just like take down a 3/4 of a pizza, you know, and then I'll just get on camera and then we do the 20 shots. And the carbos kind of like just suck up the at least for me, you know, suck up the alcohol to an extent. But yeah, a lot of the stream has been water, Pedialyte, Gatorade, you know, and making sure you have nothing to do the next day.
Yeah.
that's the hangover cure, is being hungover and making sure you have nothing to do the next day. That's the hangover cure.
Unbelievable. Brian, you had your hand up for a sec. You have a question?
Yeah, I was going to agree with him with the carb loading thing. There was a day back in my heavier drinking days. I went to a bar about 7 o'clock or so in the evening, but we went to a sandwich shop beforehand, and we both got it's a large sandwich, but it's bigger than like a Subway large, whatever. I don't know how I had room for beer after that, but it was dollar domestics. So the quality isn't there, but you're going to have a full belly. It's not going to be a good night. We drank till the bar closed, and I was somehow still alive the next morning and not in a ton of pain. So yeah, if you have the stomach for it, carb loading can definitely work. And I very much agree on the electrolyte drinks as well. They're the godsend.
Thanks, Brian. Ty, thank you so much. Hanging out with me, talking about your life, talking about music, talking a little. We talked about craft beer. I like it very much. About DIY, about so much. We didn't even touch Patreon, which I had a whole thing about, because you guys are like the master classes of Patreon. For with the #1 most funded indie metal band, which is incredible, with over 424 people at this point, almost $4,000 Canadian a month. It's very impressive. We didn't even touch on that, so you got to come back, is basically what I'm saying.
Oh gosh, I'm going to have to drink beer and talk? Oh, no. I suppose I'll make it work.
I appreciate you very much. Massive cheers to you, Thirsty Thursday gang. As always, unmute yourselves and give Ty a warm send-off before I stop recording and we keep hanging out. You should have been here, people, if you wanted to keep hanging out with us, but you're not here. Cheers.
Yeah.
Hey. Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. You know what I love and appreciate that. Man, this was an awesome Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. Massive shout out once again to Natalka for introducing me to Ty. What an amazing guest. I was blown away as I was doing my research at the amount of things that Ty has pulled off all by himself. It's extremely impressive and super inspiring, even for myself, to think about things differently, to imagine different ways of doing things. And there's not just one way to do something in this world, and Ty definitely opened my eyes to that. Give him some love on Patreon, follow them on YouTube, go and pick up his DIY course on Spectre Academy. I have put the links to all of that in the description of this podcast. Massive cheers to you, Ty. I cannot wait to hang out some more. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. When you do that, you shall receive one email a week where you shall hear about everything that has happened in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. You will get to see which episodes I have coming up. You will get to see about any projects I have in the works before I announce them to the public, and I have a massive one in the works right now. You will also get to see which albums the Vox and Hops album review crew have reviewed, and you will get to see which albums Jerry Monk, Vox and Hops' metal architect, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist. There is always a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, and I hate when you miss a single thing, so sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a killer rest of the week. I will be back on Friday with a brand new episode, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.